Thank you all. Thank you so much. This is a very cool setup right here. First of all, I just wanted to congratulate all of you for sticking it out the entire day. I now know who my true fans are, and we'll be taking all of your names so we can recognize you appropriately. It sounds like, in looking at the agenda, though I wasn't able to hear all the speakers, that you had a lot of really amazing topics and speakers come across this stage. And so what I wanted to leave you with is a little bit of what we're thinking from DHS and some challenges that we believe we can, if we take them on as a community, that we can continue to build a safer and more secure internet. So my job as the Assistant Secretary for Cybersecurity and Communications at DHS means that I lead the organization that is responsible for defending and securing federal civilian agency networks, engaging with critical infrastructure to help them protect their networks, as well as working to secure the broader global cyber ecosystem. And I won't bore you with all the details of every one of our programs, but we do have a lot of fact sheets if you're interested in more details. But I want to give you some high-level sort of what we do and what we're thinking about and where we think we can go in the future. So on the federal side, and I know you heard from Kevin and John earlier talk a little bit about some of those programs, but we have over the past decade-ish of being in operation evolved significantly in terms of how the federal government thinks about cybersecurity. And I think we're in a really exciting place right now. Because when we first sort of started, there was, there wasn't the industry that there is right now. There wasn't the tools and the capabilities that there are right now. There wasn't the workforce that there is right now. Now, all of these things need to continue to improve, and we need more of them, but we really didn't have that. And then lastly, there wasn't the focus. You didn't have that executive level attention on cybersecurity. You know, I think a lot of you, I know myself, we used to spend a lot of time wondering if anybody would hear us crying in the wilderness. Now we get all the attention we want, which is, you know, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And so we've, on the federal cybersecurity side, we've evolved our authorities and our capabilities to really start to be in a position where DHS and federal agencies and the IC, we're positioning ourselves to not only have networks and systems that are instrumented to better protect against our ever more increasingly sophisticated and complex adversaries, but where we are able to have a much more enterprise-wide approach to how we think about risk to the federal government. And a lot of this is captured in the President's Cybersecurity Executive Order, where it's thinking about, you know, taking that foundational principle of agency heads, just like a CAO, right? You're responsible for your cybersecurity. I don't run your network. I don't run your mission at DHS. You are responsible for managing the risk to your mission and how your cyber systems impact that. However, I can provide you a lot of capabilities, and I can do it in a way, particularly if I'm doing it in a way that leverages the purchasing power of the entire federal government. I can do it more cost effectively and more scalably in a more consistent way. And that's what we've really been focused on the past several years, is building and deploying those capabilities. And now we have, whether it's through our continuous diagnostics and mitigation program or Einstein, these sensors deployed at the perimeters and internal to agency networks. And that's from a cost-effective perspective, from consistency, from ensuring that agencies who oftentimes struggle to get resources for their cybersecurity can be at that same level that other agencies have been at. Those are all important. But what's really important is how that's going to change the game for us at DHS and the operational benefits that will bring us and other agencies and citizens of our country and residents that depend upon having a trusted, secure interaction with their government. And so in addition to deploying these sensors, what we're building internal to my organization is how do we then turn all of that data, automating more and more as much as we possibly can. I keep saying we have humans doing things that computers should be doing. And so we need to have the computers be doing as much as possible, automating as much as possible, leveraging the best that the private sector has got, and put those on agency networks. Same thing with critical infrastructure. And as that data is coming into DHS, we're increasingly in a position, whether it's these federal agency sensors, our engagement with them, it's critical infrastructure information sharing programs, where we now are sitting on, in this very unique capacity of authorities that can protect this information from a privacy and civil rights, civil liberty perspective. We can anonymize it, but we can also turn it into actionable information and analytics that can then help us, one, understand what is the actual risk posture of the federal government or critical infrastructure, and then what are the trends that we're seeing? What do we see from the adversary side? What do we see from agency practices and critical infrastructure practices? And how can we start to focus our efforts? And the mantra for us sort of going forward is, our moonshot, our goal. There's a lot of people who have been talking about moonshot lately, which I think is awesome. But if that's going to be, I want a safe and secure internet or a defensible cyberspace, those are both sort of plausible things that I think are worth continuing to consider, and I challenge everybody to engage in that conversation. What are the very tangible and scalable things that we can do in the federal government and within critical infrastructure? We have a lot of multinational companies that can impact the global environment. So how is the United States leading through these tangible efforts, the sort of moving towards a more safe and secure internet? I think where we really need to challenge ourselves is everything we do needs to be pushing towards a goal of a more defensible cyberspace. And that may mean that we have to go and do things like relook at some protocols or look into standards. What are we doing on the international standard side? And I think there's a lot of space in there to be thinking, both in the United States and across countries, of how are we coming together to identify those things that will make the internet fundamentally more secure, depending on the user, to have a strong password, to make sure that they're updating, to make sure that they don't click on the link. These things are not going to get us to that sort of end goal. So that's a lot of what we're focused on, is what are the things that we can do in our role? We can't solve this alone, but what are the things that we can do in our role? And a great example, I believe, of that is on Monday we issued a binding operational directive. Now, I can't direct the entire country to do a lot of things, but I can direct other agencies to do things. And so in this case, what we said is, look, we need to take some simple, basic steps that are industry best practices around email security and web security that will better protect us from people trying to get into our networks, but it's also going to raise the level of trust that people can have in an email coming from the federal government is actually an email coming from the federal government, or when they engage with the federal government through a website or the delivery of services through websites, that they can trust that. And we believe that that is something fundamental that we need to focus on. Secondly, what that does is signal that these sort of, like I said, discrete, very scalable things, actions that you can take and that the federal government is taking, we are now signaling to other entities, other enterprises, and I would challenge all of you to look at things like DMARC, HTTPS, et cetera, that these are things that you can do as an enterprise. But it only works if we're all doing it, right? DMARC only works if sender and receiver does it. And that gets to this shared responsibility. So you've had email providers that have been doing this, but enterprises less so. So the government, we're going to take ownership and we're going to take steps. And I'm not suggesting that adopting DMARC or HTTPS is going to solve all of our problems. And nor should it. But these are the sorts of things that if we can find as a community the tangible, discrete steps that we can take and start, in the United States, again, globally, that we can start to get towards that moonshot, if you will. Because I really believe that we can get the defenders to have the advantage. I truly believe that. And now I probably am saying that because that's my job. We're network defenders. And I know it's one of the harder jobs. It's probably not as sexy as going on offense. But we have a passionate crew of people. I know all of your companies have people that are passionate about network defense. And I think we owe it to that community, to our own folks, to the citizens across the world that depend upon the internet. And if we want to continue to have this internet, this trusted, diffused internet that we've all come to know and love, then we really owe it to ourselves and to this entire community to take these real actionable steps as a community and demonstrate leadership in order to get the network defenders the advantage. So with that, I would just leave you with those few notes and challenges, and I look forward to continuing to work with you and continuing to engage with all of you as we at DHS continue to lean forward and establish, ideally, wonderful partnerships with all of you in this vision. Thank you.